just a quick, does this work? Thank you. I hope I have enough time to get through what I want to say, but it is this. I always start with thanks and then a small apology. The thanks is, of course, it wouldn't make much difference what I have to say if you weren't here, so thank you for coming. The apology is, all of us who get up here don't have all the answers. There is too much information, not everybody knows everything. And so if you imagine a 3D cube of information, all I'm doing is tracing a single line between A and B that's interested me, and I'm hoping that that journey will be as interesting for you to listen to as it was for me to research. How is it that a musician or a historian or anyone else comes to this point and says, I want to get up and talk at the Zoroastrian Congress? Yeah, you probably think, well, that's a crazy thing to want to do. But I'm looking at my nephews and niece in the front row, and I'm looking at the young people that I have known since the last time we had a Congress in the Southland. Some of you may remember 1985 as well as I do. And I've seen the youth of our community drift away. And this is a serious problem. And I thought, am I making it up? Is it just something that I think? And the truth is no. In the youth forum just about an hour and a half ago, people felt disjointed from their communities. People felt that they weren't welcomed for whatever it is that they wish to believe. And I think we've done, I'm not counting the people who've done religious classes and got involved and done very good work, but we as a community have done an abysmal job of presenting the facts of the faith to young people so that they will choose Zoroastrianism for themselves. This is not a question of you must do this and you must do this and you must do this and you must do that, and worse still, you mustn't do this and you mustn't do that and you mustn't do this. No teenager with their broad minds and connected as they are to the rest of the world is going to tolerate that for a second. And we've got to change our attitudes so that they choose it for themselves. If they choose it for themselves, they will keep it. And all that conversation about whether or not people are included or not will be a byproduct of something gone. They must choose it for themselves. So here goes. I hope I can get through this. It's interesting, the word religion comes from its Latin root. Re, to do again and again. Yeah, we all get that. Ligo, ligare, to bind. To rebind oneself to God. That's what the word religion means. Now I ask you, is that possible for you to rebind yourself to God as you would in your darkest moments at 3 a.m. in the morning? Do you do this by asking the person next to you? Do you do this by your community gumbar? Do you do this by exchanging recipes? Do you do this by traditional customs? Do you do this by anything that governs us getting together or having someone else's viewpoint placed on you? The answer is no. You rebind yourself to God your way, personally. And there is no other way. It is a personal dynamic. It always has been. Don't be under any illusion as to how that would work. And this suits us fine, because I'm going to try and explain through Zarathustra's own text how he feels exactly the same way. It is yours to choose, yours to decide. In fact, whether you want to believe or not is left open to you by Zarathustra. There is no commandment about doing this or doing that that controls you. You must find it for yourself. So where would you go to reconnect with Zoroastrianism? And I have a little comparison which I hope you'll find interesting. The Christian comparison is obvious. Some of you may know this. The New Testament is the testament of Christ, negating or making new the Old Testament, which is the chronology of the Hebrews. And Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are the Gospels. I put them in red because they supposedly contain the words of Christ. Yeah? Also in a slightly darker red, I've put Acts of the Apostles, and I've put Luke Acts. Why? As a historian, you've got to know Luke was written in Greek, and it was written at the same time as the Acts of the Apostles, also in Greek, by possibly the same authors. So you've got to take it all in at the same time. That is the core stuff. Following it comes St. Paul's letters to the Mediterranean peoples. Romans, Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, all that stuff, which must be, if you're a good Christian, a commentary on the core stuff. It is not equal to the core stuff. It is a commentary of one disciple, man, on the core stuff. And then, of course, you get the other stuff, the Hebrews, James, and it's going to go off my screen. Yes, it did. The Revelations of St. John the Divine, an extraordinary trip in the night. Those are all corresponding commentaries. If Christ, bear with me, you'll know where I'm going with this. If Christ had said, I'm going to come back next Tuesday and tell you more, and didn't, you might have to buy that and say, well, that's blasphemy. His mission was absolutely complete. He didn't forget to say anything either. And he didn't run out of time to say anything either. What he has in red is what he intended to say, no more, no less. The commentators down through the ages later have added, and yes, that is the sacred canon of the Christian faith. But if you were Christians now, and I asked you to exhort, and you would understand the logic of this, you cannot, should not is better, should not prioritize any of the commentary stuff with the actual core of the faith, and I've put it in red. All right? Are you all with me? Do you understand what I'm saying? The logic of that is unassailable. If you're a Christian, you have to believe in what Christ said. If you are believing in Paul more than you are in what Christ said, call yourself a Paulist and move on. Find the person who wrote all the stuff that you do like and follow them, but then don't call yourself a Christian because you're entitled to follow Christ. Got it? I've got the logical premise. Here we are. In red, the Gathas. It's either true or it's not. These are attributed to our prophet, Zarathustra. The 7 chapters in dark red that are in the middle, which are in prose, not in poetry, are not attributed to them. They're attributed to his disciples. Read them by all means. They come from the same time. Just like I put Luke Acts and Luke into the Acts of the Apostles, you have to take the historical significance. And, of course, in deep red, the Yasnas. All 72 chapters that encase the Gathas of Zarathustra. Read them, enjoy them. They are valid. Everything else that comes in black is the commentary on the core. It is our sacred text. I'm not saying it's not. The Visvared, liturgical additions and ritualistic additions. The Vandidad, as we know, the myths, the codes of purifications, the religious observances, and latterly imposed do's and don'ts. The Yashts, worship by praise, particularly the divinity, the divines, the variable style of the later works, and the Sirosa, where you have enumerations of the 30 divinities, and all this part of our sacred canon. And then the later Kordevasta, some of which is in recognizable Farsi. If you understood the logic of the Christian slide, you must understand and take up the logic of this slide. The commentary cannot superimpose itself on the Gathas. It cannot prioritize itself over the Gathas. Keep it by all means, use it, do whatever you want with it. It's your choice. But you may not stand up and quote something from what I've placed in black and avoid or decide not to follow what's in the Gathas. Because then again, with the same comparison and the same glibness, I'd have to say, if you're a Zoroastrian, you need to follow the words of Zarathustra. If you're interested in all this other stuff, you'll have to find the Sasanian priest who wrote it and follow him. It's as simple as that. So, having said this, and if you follow me through this, don't take my word for it. You all remember Dastur Minoche Homji, God rest him. He was a wonderful man. I had the great privilege of meeting him in 1985 in Bombay. He spoke in 1985 to the first World Zoroastrian Organization conference, and he said this: I request you to distinguish between the religion of Zarathustra and Zoroastrianism. What did he mean by that? Many scholars have written on later Zoroastrianism, and they call it Zoroastrianism. There is a difference, a world of difference, between the religion of Zarathustra and the 3rd century BC Zoroastrianism that came afterwards, and therefore a world of difference between the Gathas and the Vandidad. Let us know that the late Dr. Dalal has done a yeoman service by distinguishing the periods in his History of Zoroastrianism. It's a huge tome, it's worth the read, it's very scholarly. So please, and this is the kindly, saintly man he was, he's not going to be as brusque and as non-apologetic as I am. He said, so please, whenever you read some quotations from the Vandidad, also take care to see that you read quotations from the Gathas. That premise is quite easy to follow. Having said this, what do the Gathas tell us? And I don't have that kind of time. It's a wonderful thing. Buy the translations. This is here to stay. In the last 70 years, there were 3 translations of the Gathas. In the last 18 months, there have been 4. This has become a modern trait of scholarship. It's not going away, and this is what we have to study. So what would it be in the Gathas that is interesting? You can pare it down. It is Asha, the most referred to thing in the Gathas at all times. By repetition, by correlation, by communication, by connection with other things, Asha, Asha, Asha. How many of you are familiar with this topic? That's not nearly enough hands. All right? Asha is referred to as the divine triad, a complete and unbreakable combination of God, the consistent use of good mind, Vahumana, and truth or righteous order. All 3 of those together are Asha, separately and together. Yeah? Got it? You understand that? Remember that Asha is these 3 things working together and separately all the time. What constitutes God? We've gone through this. We know we have our 7 areas that we look at, but all of them can be seen through the lens of Asha, because without Asha, none of them would exist. Asha, of course, is righteous order and truth. Spenta menu, something you know about, the goodness of the spenta menu, the spirit which derives its character from Asha. It has to be good to be spenta menu. It has to follow Asha. Asha is the reason for spenta menu. Vohumana, good thinking, and consistently choosing Asha. That's what Vohumana is. It's Asha, Asha, Asha. Spenta Armaiti, remember this one for later, it'll be interesting. The realization of Asha here on earth by you, good thoughts, good words, and good deeds practiced all day long, create Spenta Armaiti. And it's the realization of Asha through the experience of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Kashatra, the rule, remember that too for later on. The rule of truth, the law of truth that governs everything, that governs the world that our Amazda thought up, is Asha and the good thinking, which leads to completeness in Asha. It's a complete life, it's a complete journey for the soul, it's a completeness of everything in Asha. And I hope it says Ameritat. We talk about this as immortality. I have a different line on it. It's non-deathness. And if we are bound to God, rebinding ourselves to God then our duty is to be practicing Asha all the time. And it's not us that is immortal. It's the everlasting truth that's immortal. So you understand, we're co-opted into working in this process. All right, that's enough. You're going to be thoroughly bored if I went on like this. I'm not going to. I have something more exciting for you. This document, and this is why it's so important that the young people here, and the people my age, and anyone else who wishes to follow the logic of it, must choose it for themselves and see how relevant what I'm saying is today, here in the United States. This document is an amazing document. Please read it, find it, look it up. It is the Virginia Statute of Religious Liberty. It was written by our third president, Thomas Jefferson, and he was very, very proud of this. He was an important man. He did a lot of things. He gave us our first foreign policy. You can boo or cheer, but he founded the Democratic Party. He wrote the Declaration of Independence. He founded the University of Virginia. He managed to become our third president during all that. This document describes why religious freedom is so important to each person. And this document becomes what we have in our First Amendment. Congress shall make no law regarding an establishment of religion. The religious worship that is codified in American law for you and me comes from this document. It was ratified in 1777, and it's an amazing document, and we'll go through it part by part. And he was most proud of this. He was most proud of the Declaration of Independence, founding the university, and this document. He was not, those three things appear on his tombstone, not all the other stuff. I got very excited reading it, and hopefully you will too when we go through it. And I thought, I wonder, because of what this document says, and because of what I see in the Gathas, will I be able to take, paragraph by paragraph, the Virginia Statute of Religious Liberties and compare it directly with the Gathas? And the answer is yes, absolutely. It's in black. The religious liberty is in black. The yasnas that follow the Gathas will be in red, so there's no way of you mixing that up. Whereas Almighty God had created the mind free. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds. It starts with a thought. You can't have good words and good deeds if you haven't thought about them ahead of time. The thought is the most important gift. Ahura Mazda knows this. He tells Zarathustra, and we get this. Whereas Almighty God had created the mind free. This is from Jefferson. Freedom. Yasna 45. Listen to me as I speak forth now. Ponder over these teachings with clear and careful thought. This is not listen to what I say and do it. This is not I command you to do what's in my head. It's listen and decide for yourself. This is the mantra throughout Zoroastrianism. Here's another one. Yasna 48. As you know in the Gathas, or you may or may not know, one chapter is a series of questions posed to Ahura Mazda, and the other chapter gives the answers, which then he passes to us, his followers. And this is his talking to Ahura Mazda, these meditative moments. Before the struggle in my mind begins, he starts off. He's already laid the slate clean that whatever Ahura Mazda is going to say to him, he will think about it and make up his own mind. And he challenges you to do the same thing. Before the struggle in my mind begins, tell me, Ahura, all that I should know. Give me the assurance that righteousness shall overcome the untruth. Such is your plan, the final shape of life. Back to Jefferson and the Virginia Statute. This is very important. And remember it, that all attempts to influence the mind free by temporal punishments or burthens or by civil incapacitations tend only to beget habits of hypocrisy and meanness, and therefore our departure from the plan of the holy author of our religion, who being Lord both of body and mind, yet chose not to propagate it by coercions on either side, as was his almighty power to do. This is the throat clearing of the Virginia Statute. I thought, I know that's in the Gathas. I've read it before. Forcing a viewpoint is completely un-Zoroastrian. Yasna 30, verse 3. Thus are the primeval spirits, who as a pair together and yet each independent in his action. They are the good thing and the evil thing. And between these two, let the wise choose aright. The choice is in your hands. It has never been anywhere else. Then Armaiti approached, and with her came Kashatra and Vahumana and righteous order, Asha. And to the spiritual creations of both good and evil she gave a body. And he says, I hope that our bodies will remain as uncorrupt at the end. This lack of coercion, because it is our choice, is crucial. It's not me saying it, it's him saying it. You know, it's up to you. Here's a wonderful thing. I was wondering whether I'd find a passage in the Gathas to deal with this. I'm reading it out because I don't know whether you can see it or not, but I thought it would help because it's text heavy. I apologize about that. That the impious presumption of legislators and rulers, civil as well as ecclesiastical, who being themselves but fallible and uninspired men, have assumed dominion over the faith of others, setting up their own opinions and modes of thinking as the only true and infallible, and such endeavoring to impose them on others, hath established and maintained false religions over the greatest part of the world and through all time. This is the Virginia Statute. Zarathustra had exactly the same problem when he was alive. You all know this, and he responds to it. My heading is, leaders, spiritual or temporal, must earn their trust. There's no guaranteed rule. You can't show up and say, I'm going to lead. They have to earn your trust. Yasna 48, verse 10. When, Mazda, shall the men of mind's perfection come? And when shall they drive hence the soil of this polluted, drunken joy, whereby the Karapans with angry zeal would crush us, and by whose inspiration the tyrants of the provinces hold their evil rule? His pronouncements and his ideas were far-reaching because they are simple and connected to a philosophy of life. It's not so much a religion that binds you to follow it. It is a philosophy of life, and it is simple and very powerful. And if you were to pick it up and choose it for yourself, it would be for these reasons. There's nothing that forces you. By the way, I forgot to tell you at the beginning, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm absolutely not empowered to do that kind of thing. But I am here to tell you that no one else can tell you what to do either. When you stand on the bridge, Chinvatpul, which he does mention, you don't have your neighbor with you. You don't have your panchayat with you. You don't have your card-playing team with you. You don't have anybody with you. It's you, what you did and what you thought. So remember, you hold that choice in your hands. I was very excited with this slide because it's all about Asha, and it's from the Virginia Statute. And finally, that Asha is great and will prevail if left to herself, that she is the proper and sufficient antagonist to error and has nothing to fear from the conflict, unless by human interposition, disarmed of her natural weapons, free argument and debate, errors ceasing to be dangerous when it is permitted freely to contradict them. And I was like, am I going to fall flat here? Will I find this in the Gathas? And of course, I do find it in the Gathas. Preserving the supremacy of Asha. No friends to the creatures of the Karapans, not granting complete harvests from the fields. If you have grey areas or partial truths or lies and not all of it, Asha cannot come to the top. Our job is to collect all the facts and put it there. With complete pasture for the people, bringing woe by their deeds and their teachings, and they will deliver these beings whom they lead at last by their doctrine into the home of the lie. I was interested in this concept because We are enjoined to create this moment of Asha in all of our lives. Truth doesn't have elbows. Truth doesn't kick. It stands at the back of the room and waits until you have put all your facts there in front of it. And then, with a power of its own that is not yours, it rises to the top because there is no other alternative. Surrounded by all that stuff, Asha comes to the top. It is the supremacy of Asha. We need to make sure that we are constantly gathering as much information as possible and putting it on the table, not for our benefit, but so that Asha might have its divine moment. This is crucial. It's the same. It's in other things as well. And when the perfection shall have been attained, when this Asha has risen to the top, then the blow of destruction will fall upon the lie. It's basic, it's simple, but it's incredibly powerful. And we don't do enough of it. We don't gather enough to say, Asha, do your thing. There are a bit more. The good government of Aura is to be chosen. Actions that oppress us it opposes through the holy order which pervades it. Let me produce and help bring on that sovereign power, this Kshatra. It's Asha. And it's a prayer. All these are translations, the closest we can get to what Zarathustra intended. And of course, the righteous man's conscience will with Asha, crush the wicked man's spirit. And this is how the Virginia Statute ends off, that no man shall be compelled to frequent or support any religious worship. Such act will be an infringement of natural right. And I was like, how is it possible that a prophet would come out and say, I've got this great faith for you, and would say, but you don't have to believe if you don't want to. Or if you have a crisis of faith and you haven't got there yet, that's okay. Or if you're not quite sure in your head what God is, that's okay too. Because it's not about recognizing God, it's about Asha and good thoughts and good words and good deeds. Would I find this in the Gathas? Would I find this paragraph? Of course I would. It's the famous Yasna 30 verse 2. Hear ye then with your ears, see ye the bright flames with the eyes of the better mind, Vahumana. Let each man, woman choose his or her creed with that freedom of choice which each must have at great events. How amazing is this? How amazing is this? The keepers of the religion are not some guardians you've given power. They are you. You are the keepers of this religion, because each religion is yours to make of as you will, personally. We are free to choose, not by acclamation, not with the foolish decision of a mob, but each individually for themselves, using Vahumana. This looks like it's commentary on the Gathas, and it actually is, but you'll be kind of surprised where it comes from. But when men have realized that time has upset many fighting faiths, they may come to believe even more than they believe in the very foundations of their own conduct, that the ultimate good desired is better reached by a free trade in ideas. That the best test of truth, Asha, is the power of the thought to get itself accepted in the competition of the market, and that truth is the only ground upon which their wishes safely can be carried out. Asha. Oliver Wendell Holmes, in his great dissent on the First Amendment case, Abrahams versus United States, it's in our judicial system. It's absolutely what we'd expect, because it's simple, it's true, you can't escape it, and it's part of our American Constitution as much as it is anything else, because it's the right thing to do. It's nothing new. I love the fact that he talks about the best test of truth having a competition. It's the same philosophy that Zarathustra had in the Gathas and that I mentioned from the 1777 document with Jefferson, you can't get away from this. It is absolutely valid. So the young people in the audience are wondering, well, what is Zoroastrianism? I didn't know, and blah, blah, blah. It's right here. Pick it up. Choose it. It's not going to be difficult. It might be difficult to follow through your life constantly doing this, but it's worth it. We must all choose our path. This is the great gift. We are choosing our own path. We are not told by other people what to do, when to do it, how to do it. It's completely wrong. And if people start doing that or continue doing it or you're letting them do it, please stop. It's just not worth it. This is in your hands. It's in your heart. It's up to you. It's a great gift to say, you're on your own, choose. It's up to you. Your relationship with God is yours. It is a great unshackled power. If you are told what you say, what you decide is right, and it's a personal decision between you and God at 3 a.m. in the darkness of the day with no one else there, it's very empowering. You don't have to check. You don't have to check with someone laterally, someone whom you consider higher to be someone lower. You don't have to check. It's you. It's only you. It's a great power. It's also a great responsibility. You have to make sure that what you have believed and what you've told yourself you believe is actually what you believe, but it helps. It is also the great equality. It comes to men, to women, to children, to whoever will listen and understand equally. We don't get a chance to say, well, actually, these people on this side of the room don't have an entitlement to this, and these people on that side of the room shouldn't do that, and the people in the center of the room, well, we're not quite sure, but we're going to barricade them around until we figured out what to do with them. No. Right? It's a great equalizer, and it is unassailable. If you are a practicing Zoroastrian and you believe that Gathas were the words of Zarathustra, this is it. I'm not making this up. I've had the good pleasure of researching it for you. And this is the great legacy. I think it would be really easy if our youth got together and said, what do I pass on to my children? It's easy. It's not all the mumbo jumbo. It's what it should be. And no more and no less. And it's up to you to choose. It's up to you to choose. It's simple, it's important, it's powerful, it's unassailable. I'm going to get into something here that also refers to Asha directly in some of our prayers. In the Gathas, Zarathustra describes evil as a primordial force. And we know that Ahura Mazda is battling evil. And he is everything that is good. And then there's the spirit of Ahriman that creates problems. But we're enjoined in this battle over good and evil. And he says that in our existence, we bring it to life if we give it substance. We make it real when we choose it with our thoughts, words, and actions. Evil is in our control, not the other way around. And if we dispel it by good thoughts, good words, good deeds, Asha, destruction of evil. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds, supremacy of Asha, destruction of evil. It's all automatic. The key to the destruction of evil is to make the right choices. And so I want to talk a little bit about Ashemvo and Yathaveryo. Ashemvo obviously is all about righteousness. Ashem, Asha, it comes from the same word. Yathaveryo is an incredibly powerful prayer, and some of you know it as a mantra of protection. It is true, it is. It's a very protective prayer because it is the prayer of choices. Ahu is God, Ratush is the law, and Kashatra is the judgment. And you know you have Yatahuveryo, Yataratush, Asha Chit Hacha. In other words, both are governed by Asha. Such as God is chosen through Asha. Therefore, the law is chosen through Asha, and therefore the judgment will fall as Asha. It's a three-part prayer that is very powerful, and as you utter it, evil dispels. That's the circuit behind it. There's a wonderful image that people say in our law and in our custom that Aura Mazda intoned the Yathavaryo before breathing life into the universe. It's an extraordinarily powerful moment. It's not worth repeating it 5 times, mumbling it into your sadhara if you don't understand it. Read. Go and find out what is required, because you can't then talk to your children and explain to them, or your youth nonplussed as to where to go with this. They must pick it up and choose it for themselves. They have to see it for what it is. It's wonderful. Don't get upset. I'm here, again, not to tell anybody what to do. I'm just here to tell you that no one else can tell you what to do either. The choices are yours. And I'm duty-bound by what I've just described to you to lay out what I know to be right. And then you make up your own minds. It's interesting that aletheia, the Greek word for truth, I've just substituted asha, is that which is uncovered. It's a wonderful way of looking at it. And I mentioned that asha rises to the top with its own power because we've put everything there for it to do its own sorting and rise. These are all not mine. They're all from the great man himself. Yasna 50, verse 5. Lord, let wisdom come in the company of truth across all the earth. Remember this one. I'm going to refer to it later. Remember our mighty. When you have good thoughts, good words, and good deeds here on earth, you create spenta our mighty. He says any such person of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds is of that same lineage with Asha. And all those other forces existing under thy rule, the whole lot. He says here, you may not like to hear it, but anyone, anywhere on this planet today practicing good thoughts, good words, and good deeds is de facto a Zoroastrian. Yeah? It's there. Yasna 49, verse 5. It's not me, it's him. That commandment which is for thy adherence, in order for us to know that by that means by which I might convince, I changed this word. It said something else. Yeah? Convince, lead all of the living, so that I may lead all the living. I looked at this paragraph, this segment, with about 15 different translations. Taraporvala, Zane, a number of different Germans, a couple of English people. You can't get away, even though the Gathas have some gray area, and I have to admit this, and you all know it. The gray area is in what word to choose. The direction of the message is never ever in question. All of them came down on the same side as all of this. So, can I just talk briefly about what I'm skirting around? The issue of, it's not conversion, it's acceptance. Some of you may be under the apprehension that there are two sides to this argument, those who want and those who don't. No, actually, sorry. There's only one choice that we have. What we have set up is a series of misunderstandings. I have here the 1908 case between the Gigi boys and the Pettits that decide who is a Parsi. And by the way, that distinction of who is a Parsi was written down by English lawyers because the reason for this, the case was, if I can read it, Justice Daver wrote, the two things before this court are whether the defendants are validly appointed as trustees of the Panchayat. That was one half of the case. And the second half of the case is whether a person born in another faith and subsequently converted to Zoroastrianism and admitted into the religion is entitled to the benefits of the community. It never said it wasn't possible. It said, should they share in the benefit? It's a very different thing. And then, as this goes through, all our religious leaders are asked to comment. And we come across the findings of the case that go through a huge amount of, yes, this village in Surat was converted entirely because it was convenient, they stood on Zoroastrian property, or these people who were servants in the family for a long, long time and their generationally has allowed it. And so it says, quite clearly, section 219, to sum up this part of the case on the question of conversion, the conclusion of the court is, number one, that Zoroastrian religion not only permits but enjoins the conversion of a person born in another religion of non-Zoroastrian parents. That although such conversion was permissible, the Zoroastrians in India have tried not to. I've already told you the reasons. And then it goes through levels 5, 6, 7, and 8 as to how you might convert someone into the faith if you wanted to. And just before we stop entirely on that point, confetti. They knew this case was coming up, and so some of you may remember, this was before my time, but Shams Ulema Ervad Jivanji Jamshedji Modi, then Secretary of the Bombay Panchayat, asked the opinion of Dastur Jamaspji, the Anjuman Atash Behram High Priest. And it was given to him in a letter dated 14 September 1903. Dear Sir, you have requested me to give my opinion on whether or not to allow non-Zoroastrians to convert to Zoroastrianism. In reply, and this is underlined in the letter, not by me, I have to state that there is no bar in our religion to accept non-Zoroastrian converts. Every Zoroastrian reciting his obligatory daily prayers, such as Khorshid and Mer Yash, prays that our Mazdiasni religion may be spread to all the, I'm going to get this wrong, Haft Keshwar Zamin, the 7 regions of the world. The Atharnans of days gone by did not just sit around wishing it to happen, they went to spread the religion. And you refer to Yasna 41:6, and such Atharnans, when they returned to the villages where they were pastors, also then had a backlash from the people. We have referred to only 2 passages that confirm that the conversion of Judins to Zoroastrianism is permitted. The other thing is this. If you are actually praying and you do not believe that it is a universal faith, then you have to stop praying the Tandarosti, the Dinno Kalmo, the Duanam Setayashni, the Khorshid Niyash, the Bhaktiyar Niyash, the Atash Niyash, the Nirangi Hormez Niyash, the Adibesh Yash, the Sarosh Yash, and a good deal of other prayers that say, may this universal faith of Aura Mazda spread across the land for everyone. There's another thing, while I have you on this subject. It's quite interesting. We are commanded, because Aura Mazda apparently told Zarathustra and he passed it on to us, good thoughts, good words, good deeds, the supremacy of Asha for the destruction of evil. We know that Aura Mazda has enjoined all of us. We are not co-opted like other religions are. We are equal. We are not, for example, children like in Christianity. That's an odd and troubled relationship to have with your God. Yeah? We're not clods of earth that are given life, as in Islam. We are co-workers of the truth, equal. This process of power and empowerment comes because he expects everybody to have good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, everybody, and destroy evil as a consequence of that. And this has been our response to him. I'm sorry, Aura Mazda, I know, I get your message. It's good thoughts, good words, good deeds, supremacy of Asha, destruction of evil. I understand that with 7 billion people on the planet, you might need all of us to practice that, to get the job done. But we've decided to take your universal faith and make it into a dinner club for 100,000 people. And, sorry about this, but it's because we wanted to keep the money. Please, I'm not here to tell you which side to go and what to do and all the rest of it. It's up to you, but I'm supposed to tell you there's a call to action. After thinking, make sure that you fulfill your good mind with the works at hand prompted by benevolence. Also, and that he's taught that action, not inaction, higher standards obeying, then his will worship through deeds. It's all up to you. You are not without power. There are some people who've set themselves up as guardians of the faith. I don't mean to be controversial about this. Those people I have in my mind are guardians of trust money. No more. They have never, ever had the competence, never, to discuss religious matters. They've just taken that upon themselves. They are not the guardians of the religion. You are. You are. And you have to make it count. This is a Sasanian prayer. It's wonderful. It's one of the ones I mentioned, the Dua Setayashti. And it's Sasanian, but it still captures what we should be doing. And it's my closing prayer. Homage to the all-knowing tolerator, I love that word, who sent through Zarathustra's Pitama teachings of religion for the people of the world, so that they may have friendship, inculcate faith, and inner wisdom and knowledge gained from listening, for the information and guidance of all men who are, who were, and who will be hereafter. Thank you very much for listening. Take some questions if they want. I'll take some.
Appreciate your time, and thank you so much for your lovely lecture. On behalf of our Congress, I'd like to present you with a small gift.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I don't know we've gone a little bit over time. Oh, not so much. We're okay. I'm happy to take questions. I'm completely unqualified to answer them. Yeah.
May I ask my son the first question?
Yes, of course. The question is, did Jefferson steal the Gathas? Interesting. Interesting. We had in India a group of foreigners who controlled, and Zoroastrianism was written and commentated about first by the French in the 1700s, then by British writers in the 1800s, and then by Zoroastrian priests in the 1900s, and that's how we get our lineage of commentary on Zoroastrianism. Jefferson was ambassador in Paris. Maybe over a glass of wine, over some good brandy. It's possible. Dr. Bug.
About the next generation. But before I make the comment, Zane, I am immensely proud of your analysis that you have presented scripturally, and I congratulate you for that.